So motivation comes and goes. It's influenced by mood, weather, energy, and circumstances. Discipline, on the other hand, shows up even when motivation disappears. Think about athletes training for the Olympics. They don't wake up every morning feeling inspired. They train because they've committed to a standard. The system carries them forward when emotions can't. So when you rely on motivation, progress becomes inconsistent. So when you rely on discipline, progress becomes inevitable. To discipline removes the need to negotiate with yourself every day. People don't fail because they lack motivation. Instead, they fail because they forget why they started. A discipline is what keeps your actions aligned with your purpose. It's the bridge between intention and impact. A leader who truly believes their work matters doesn't wait to feel inspired to act with integrity. They do it because it's who they are. The purpose answers the question why. A discipline answers the question how every single day. Trust is built through consistency, not intensity. When you keep promises to yourself, waking up early, doing the work, following through, you build self-trust. And people who trust themselves lead better, decide better, and show up stronger. In organizations, the same rule applies. Teams don't trust leaders who make big speeches. They trust leaders who show up consistently. A discipline turns values into visible behavior, and behavior is what we often think discipline restricts us. In reality, discipline liberates us. Financial discipline creates freedom from stress. Health discipline creates freedom of energy. Work discipline creates freedom of choice. To look at successful creators, entrepreneurs, or writers, their freedom is built on routines most people avoid. Discipline is not punishment. It's self-respect in action. The truth is, real success isn't exciting every day. It's repetitive. It's quiet. It's unglamorous. The motivation loves excitement. Discipline thrives in routine. And that's why discipline always wins in the long run, because it doesn't need applause. It doesn't need momentum. It just needs commitment. The people we admire, most didn't do extraordinary things once. They did ordinary things consistently. Most people believe that motivation is the starting point of success. They believe that if they can just feel inspired enough, everything else will fall into place. But if we look closely at how meaningful progress is actually made, we begin to see a different pattern. Motivation is emotional. It's exciting, but it's unpredictable. Some days it shows up, and many days it doesn't. And when it disappears, most people stop. That's not a character flaw. That's human nature. The real question is not whether motivation will fade, but what carries us forward when it does. A discipline exists for that exact reason. Discipline is not about intensity, it's about consistency. It's the quiet decision to act even when no one is watching, even when the excitement is gone, even when the results are not yet visible. Think about the leaders we admire most, the organizations we trust, or the individuals who seem grounded and reliable. What they all have in common is not constant motivation, but a clear sense of responsibility to something bigger than themselves. When someone knows why their work matters, discipline becomes an expression of belief. A doctor doesn't show up for patients only when they feel inspired. A pilot doesn't rely on motivation to fly a plane safely. They rely on standards, systems, and discipline. Because when lives, trust, and long-term outcomes are involved, feelings are not enough. The motivation often asks, how do I feel today? Discipline asks, what does this moment require of me? That shift changes everything. It moves us away from self-centered thinking and toward purpose-driven action. And purpose is what gives discipline meaning. Without purpose, discipline feels like punishment. With purpose, it feels like commitment. To small disciplined actions repeated over time begin to shape identity. You don't become confident by feeling confident. You become confident by keeping promises to yourself. Every time you do the work you said you would do, even when it's uncomfortable, you send yourself a powerful message: I can be trusted. And when you trust yourself, others begin to trust you too. That's how leaders are formed, not through speeches, but through behavior. There's a common misconception that discipline limits freedom. In reality, it creates it. Financial discipline creates freedom from anxiety. Health discipline creates freedom of energy and longevity. Work discipline creates freedom of choice. The people who seem to have the most flexibility in their lives are often the ones who built strong routines early on. They didn't wait to feel motivated. They chose to be disciplined, and that discipline paid them back over time. Their long-term success is rarely dramatic. It doesn't look like constant progress or viral moments. It looks repetitive. It looks ordinary. It looks like doing the same right things again and again. Motivation loves beginnings. Discipline sustains the journey. And that's why discipline matters more in the long run, because the long run is where trust is built, impact is made, and meaning is found. If we stop chasing motivation and start building discipline around what we believe in, we stop relying on feelings and start relying on values. And values, when practiced consistently, have the power to change not just outcomes, but lives. We live in a world that celebrates motivation. We celebrate the big speech, the powerful quote, the moment that makes us feel ready to conquer everything. And for a moment, it works. We feel energized, we feel hopeful, we feel unstoppable. But then real life shows up. The routine returns, the pressure builds, the excitement fades, and that's where most people stop, not because they don't care, because motivation was never designed to last. Motivation's a feeling, and feelings are unreliable. They change based on sleep, stress, recognition, and results. Discipline, however, is not emotional. Discipline is a choice. It's the decision to act in alignment with what we believe, regardless of how we feel in that moment. And that's why discipline, not motivation, is what sustains progress over time. If we look at leaders we truly trust, we notice something important. They are not the loudest, they are not constantly inspiring. They are consistent. They show up when it's hard, when it's inconvenient, and when no one is applauding. That consistency builds credibility. And credibility is the foundation of leadership. People don't follow leaders because of how motivated they sound. They follow them because of how dependable they are. Discipline begins with clarity of why. When the why is weak, discipline feels like force. But when the why is strong, discipline feels like responsibility. A parent doesn't rely on motivation to care for a child. A soldier doesn't wait to feel inspired to protect others. A leader doesn't act with integrity only when it's comfortable. They act because it's who they are. Their discipline is an expression of their values. There's a powerful shift that happens when we stop asking, how do I feel today? And start asking, what does my purpose require of me today? That question moves us away from ego and towards service. It reminds us that the work is not about us. It's about the people we impact, the culture we shape, and the trust we build. To discipline also shapes identity. Every small action, repeated consistently, becomes evidence of who we believe we are. When you keep your commitments, even the small ones, you strengthen your self-trust. And self-trust changes behavior. People who trust themselves don't need constant motivation. They operate from standards. They do the work because they've decided what kind of person they want to be. To many people believe discipline limits freedom, but the opposite is true. Discipline creates freedom. The discipline to manage money creates freedom from fear. The discipline to take care of health creates freedom to live fully. The discipline to do focused work creates freedom of opportunity. What looks like restriction in the short term becomes independence in the long term. The challenge is that discipline is quiet. It doesn't create dramatic stories. It doesn't feel exciting. It looks boring. And that's exactly why it works. Long-term success is not built on moments of intensity. It's built on habits of consistency. Motivation loves the beginning. Discipline carries us through the middle. And life is mostly lived in the middle. When organizations fail, it's rarely because people lack talent or inspiration. It's because they lack the discipline to stay true to their values under pressure. When individuals burn out, it's often because they relied on motivation instead of building sustainable systems. Discipline is not about pushing harder. It's about aligning actions with beliefs in a way that can be sustained. If we want to lead better lives, stronger teams, and more meaningful work, we must stop chasing motivation and start designing discipline around what we believe in. Because in the end, motivation may start the journey, but discipline is what ensures we arrive. First, let's look at discipline through the lens of trust and culture. In leadership, trust is not built by what we say on our best days, but by what we do on our hardest days. Motivation often shows up when things are going well. Discipline shows up when they are not, and people notice the difference. When a leader continues to act with fairness, honesty, and consistency under pressure, that behavior sends a signal to everyone watching our values are not situational. Over time, that consistency becomes culture. Culture is simply discipline practiced by many, not motivation felt by a few. Teams don't need constant inspiration to perform, they need clarity and reliability. When people know what is expected and see those expectations lived out daily, they feel safe. And when people feel safe, they perform better, take smarter risks, and stay longer. This is why disciplined leadership creates loyalty. Motivation might spark excitement, but discipline builds belonging. And belonging is what makes people give their best over the long run. So now let's look at discipline from a personal growth angle, especially during moments of doubt. Everyone experiences uncertainty. Everyone questions themselves. The difference between those who grow and those who stall is not confidence, but discipline during uncertainty. Motivation says, I'll act when I feel ready. Discipline says, I'll act because growth requires movement. Think about learning a new skill, building a career, or changing a habit. In the beginning, motivation is high. Progress feels fast, but soon the learning curve slows, mistakes increase, and self-doubt creeps in. This is the moment when motivation fades. Discipline is what carries people through that uncomfortable middle. It's the willingness to stay committed even when progress is invisible. And something powerful happens when we do that. Each disciplined action becomes evidence that we are capable of growth. Confidence doesn't come first, it comes later. Discipline creates confidence, not the other way around. Over time, people stop relying on external encouragement and start trusting their own ability to endure. That internal trust is what turns effort into mastery. To both of these angles reveal the same truth: discipline is not about control, force, or rigidity. It is about alignment. Alignment between what we believe and how we behave. Alignment between what we say matters and what we actually prioritize. Motivation can inspire alignment temporarily, but discipline sustains it permanently. And when alignment becomes a habit, leadership becomes natural, influence becomes authentic, and progress becomes sustainable.